if one of the major aims of our educational system, that is our current education system, is to somehow, provide a decent living after the completion of the formal higher education, we cannot help but agree to the fact that our current education system is miserably failing. Now, one of the major reasons is definitely the ever widening gap between academia and industry expectations. Academia is failing to prepare the young learners to match the industry standards, expectations, and readiness. And one of the major implications of that being that the system is increasingly churning out more job seekers rather than more job creators. Now, we all know that the traditional educational norms, that is the conservative educational norms, which are quite orthodox in nature, they actually force our young learners to metaphorically draw and color within the lines. That is to comply, to conform, and to compete. Every child or every learner is given the same amount of time to learn the same thing in the same way and probably in the same day. So there is no wonder that the learners, they struggle a lot to realize their true potential. Additionally, there are other significant or inherent flaws which are inherent in our educational system, which needs to be addressed in significant urgency. Say, for instance, the concept of standardized testing, which is prevalent across all sectors of education, right from the primary level to the higher education. But we have to understand that the standardized tests are ways and means to assess the learner's ability to comply and to conform. They do not test or evaluate the learner's ability to create or to innovate. Secondly, if you consider right from the very childhood, we try to applaud the child when the child is able to draw and color within the lines. But we expect the same child when he or she grows up to be an out-of-the-box thinker. Now, this is the irony of our current education system. Also, the system encourages the learners to come up with one solution, one correct solution to the problems, rather than encouraging the learners to come up with meaningful questions. So the system encourages giving answers rather than coming up with thoughtful questions. Also, we see that right from the very childhood, there is one particular quotient which gets highlighted a lot. So everywhere it is IQ, IQ, and IQ. It is intelligence quotient which gets so much of prominence and importance. Though significant research has proved that more than 80% of success in your life, be it in your professional field or in your personal endeavor, actually depends on your EQ, that is your emotional quotient, and not on your intelligence quotient. Also, if you consider the fact that right from the very childhood, we impress this fact upon our children, that it is so very important to come first in everything, be it in academics or in sports or in extracurricular activities, you have to come first in everything. And that is cutthroat competition is the key. But if we consider deeply, we will see that the two important skill sets that are actually required to thrive in the 21st century world happens to be collaboration and cooperation and not cutthroat competition. So, judging by all this, sometimes we really feel that our current education system is definitely not doing justice at all to the 21st century learners whose needs and demands are so very different. Our education system does not need any reformation. Why do I say so? Because when I utter the word reformation, what I'm trying to say is that we are trying to mend a broken model. So repairing or a quick tweak or a quick fix or an easy solution is not going to work for our current education system. What the system requires is a complete overhaul, a complete revolution. Nothing short of a revolution will work for our current education system. We have to understand that the real world, which is beyond the confines of a fancy physical infrastructure of a higher educational institution, actually rewards those amply who can think and act out of the box and can carve their own path. And in order to sustain and thrive in the 21st century, ever increasingly complex workforce, the learners have to be oriented more towards collaboration and cooperation rather than cutthroat competition. In order to address and challenge the emerging global complexities, we do not need mechanically trained minds, minds which are loaded with facts and figures, minds which are systematically formulated to think alike. No, that is not what the world requires right now. And the global pandemic had proved that as well. So what the world requires right now are innovative and creative minds, minds which are capable of divergent thinking, minds which are capable of out-of-the-box ideation. That is exactly what the world requires right now. Additionally, significant focus has to be given on prioritizing on the 21st century skill sets. Skill sets such as critical thinking, effective communication, creativity, meaningful collaboration, analytical thinking, complex problem solving, effective and fast decision making. And at the same time, nurturing one's emotional intelligence and also giving due importance to the other kinds of quotients apart from only highlighting on one kind of quotient, and that is intelligence quotient. So when I refer to the other kinds of quotients, what do I specifically mean? I mean emotional quotient, EQ, creativity quotient, CQ, passion quotient, PQ, happiness quotient, HQ, spiritual as well as social quotient, SQ, and most importantly, adversity quotient, and that is AQ. That is how to deal with the vagaries of life, how to deal with the uncertainties of existence. So when all of us, including our young learners, they all have gone through this difficult yet different times of the global pandemic, they have all understood the need and importance of developing and honing adversity quotient. Without adversity quotient, we really don't know that how many more uncertainties they have to face, how many more crises they have to face in their lives. So if they do not develop that adversity quotient within themselves, how are they going to cope with those crises? So these are the kinds of things, these are the kind of skill sets, these are the kinds of quotients which our current education system must embrace, rather than giving only 100% prioritization on only one kind of quotient, and that is intelligence quotient. Now, since the topic of my talk today happens to be reimagining education for 21st century learners, so let us quickly see what are the common characteristics of these 21st century learners. These are the learners whom we find day in and day out in our classrooms. So what are they like? What are their mental framework? How do they think? So unless we know about that as educators, no matter whatever we do, that will not be enough. So we have to know them completely. We have to know their characteristics. We have to know their needs and demands, their likes and dislikes. So 21st century learners, whom we normally term as Generation Z, now they are basically entrepreneurial. That is, they're potential risk takers. They have creative and innovative ideas. They are not afraid to chase those ideas. And they believe that everything that they do not know currently is a simple click or two away. They are digital natives as opposed to us who are digital migrants. They are focused and competitive. Patience is a lost art for them. They want everything now. They know only one norm, and that is of instant gratification. They welcome change. They are constantly seeking new ideas and experiences, and they're always up for challenges in life. They prefer freedom and independence. They want to be heard. They believe that their ideas are extremely valuable. Freedom of expression is absolutely essential for Generation Z. They truly care and they want to make a positive and visible difference in the world. They have a desire to create or find meaning in everything that they do. They have a motivation to contribute positively to the world. They are technology dependent as opposed to technology fluency. Now we all tell them that this is a generation which is, completely dependent on technology, and they are so very addicted to the digital devices. God knows what is going to happen to this generation. But we have to understand that their technology dependence is not an addiction. They rather view their digital devices as extensions of themselves. They truly live and breathe the virtual connection life. Social media is an absolutely crucial element for this generation. And most importantly, they are not after work-life balance, so much as they want to establish a work-life blend. Now, there's a vast difference between work-life balance and work-life blend. So they are the ones who know and value the concept of blending work and life. They are always expecting flexibility with their work as well as with their life in general. So this is in short how Generation Z is like. So if this is what they are like, we have to understand that for them, our conventional and orthodox educational norms are no longer sufficient to address their needs and demands. Why do I say so? Because our current education system is essentially a byproduct of 19th century industrial revolution, which promotes a one-size-fits-all educational structure. And I would like to call it as an industrial factory model of productivity, which views all the learners as essentially the same and does not acknowledge the creativity, the innovation, and passion of the learners. So from this organized, formal, and rigidly structural form of education, we have to make a paradigm shift towards personalized, happy, fulfilling, stress-free, and organic learning ecosystem. So this is exactly what our current education system needs. And this is what I mean when I say that there is an urgent need for reimagining education and learning for 21st century learners. We have to give, or rather allow, the young learners more time, which they can effectively utilize in following their curiosity, creating, sharing, exploring, and experimenting with their ideas. We have to stop stigmatizing failures and mistakes. And we have to understand that both failures as well as mistakes are essential components of any effective learning experience. If we truly want the present generation to evolve into creative problem solvers, we must give them ample scope to explore the three essential P's, and that is play, passion, and purpose. So it is only a potent combination of play, passion, and purpose that truly make a person creative. And we must allow these young creative minds to not only seek innovative solutions to the problems, but also to seek inherent problems in the existing solutions. And most importantly, the young learners should have complete responsibility and ownership of their own learning. And in order to make this happen, they must be given both choice as well as voice to determine and express what, where, and how they would want to learn. Now, who's going to make all these things happen? Definitely the teachers and the educators. So in order to nurture such creative minds of our young learners effectively, the education leaders, the educators, the educational policymakers, and in fact, the entire educational fraternity should come together in order to redefine and reimagine their roles in driving this momentous shift towards empowering individual learners by maximizing their learning potential, to ultimately evolve into self-motivated and lifelong learners. Now, both the educators as well as the learners, they have to wholeheartedly embrace the benefits of any time and anywhere learning. And they have to stay committed to learning, unlearning, and relearning across all the significant phases of their lives. In fact, one of the positive offshoots of the global pandemic happens to be a paradigm shift from teaching to learning when it comes to the educators, who we all presume would definitely continue to motivate, to inspire, to stimulate, and at the same time to facilitate the love for lifelong learning among the young learners as well as among themselves. Now, it is for all of us to realize now, more so than ever, that teaching is not a mechanical task of transferring knowledge and content from one person to another. No, that is not what teaching is all about. Teaching is, in fact, one of the most creative and one of the most sophisticated professions in the world, which helps enable the young learners to evolve into a more confident, equipped, dynamic, and authentic version of themselves. So that is what teaching is all about. A truly reimagined education system will have mentors instead of teachers and learners instead of students. Now, this is something which is very important. So we have to move away from the teacher-student ecosystem into a mentor and learner ecosystem. From the sage in the stage, the teacher has to evolve into a mentor who will be a guide by the side, a co-learner, a friend, a philosopher, a coach, who will not indoctrinate, who will not teach, who will not give all the answers, rather will probe or encourage the learners to seek all the answers and possible solutions themselves. Similarly, a student is someone who is syllabus oriented and learns only for the sake of marks, grades, certificates, and degrees. But a learner is a lifelong and self-motivated learner who learns for the sake of learning, for the joy of learning. A learner moves from structured learning to organic learning. He memorizes less while he applies more, and thus becomes a human resource from a mere human being. So that is a kind of a shift that is required in our current education system. Additionally, we also must realize that just as the climate crisis in the form of a global warming is causing a havoc in the entire world currently, there is also another significant crisis, and that is of human resources, which should be dealt with the same urgency and importance as the former. Now, human resources are very much like natural resources. They're often buried deep and they do not show up unless you make a real attempt to create suitable conditions where they can thrive, and unless you make a real attempt to look for them. Now, this applies to our learners, to our educators, as well as to our education leaders, because education is not a mechanical process. It is primarily and significantly a human process. Now, as educators, we do not teach history, geography, sciences, or mathematics. We often make this mistake of terming ourselves as I'm a teacher of English, or I'm a teacher of geography, or I'm a teacher of sciences. No, that is not what we are, because we are not teaching subjects. We are teaching the young learners who are human beings. So education is a human process. So the human element in education has to be brought back, or it has to be retained. Also, I believe that the real role of leadership in education. And why I say leadership in education? Because I believe that all the teachers are actually leaders in their own respective classrooms. So all of us are leaders as educators. So the real role of leadership in education should never be one of command and control. It should rather be one of climate control. That is, creating a climate of possibility and immense potentiality where the learners will not strive to exist, but rather continue to thrive. After all, we have to remember that success in the real term is defined by the essential shift from striving to thriving. Now, in fact, one of the significant learnings that COVID-19 has gifted all of us is that there is absolutely no substitute to investing in human capital, in human potential, and in human resources. It seems that it needed one C to bring about the power and importance of another C. That is, it needed one corona or a COVID to bring about the power and importance of collaboration and connectivity. The pandemic has impressed upon the fact that the educators, as well as the learners, they cannot continue to work as well as to learn in silos anymore. And that they have to collaborate. They have to share and exchange their viewpoints, their ideas, their concerns and insights in order to make real learning visible and possible. In fact, we all know that as educators or as teachers, the greatest resources that we have is actually each other. Without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspective. So collaboration definitely is the key. Along with collaboration, there is another very vital and very, very important aspect, and that is engagement. So we all know that as teachers, if we cannot engage the learners, we will end up, as it is said, that if a teacher fails to engage the learners, the teacher will end up in enraging the learners. So if you do not want to enrage your learners, you have to find out suitable ways and means, innovative strategies and creative techniques to involve and to engage your learners. So be it in online mode or in offline physical mode. So engagement happens to be another key component. We all know that increasing rate of student dropouts across all the stages of education itself presents an alarming statistics. But that we have to understand that is merely the tip of an iceberg. More alarming is in fact the percentage of students who do not technically drop out from the system, who are very much present in your and my classrooms, but they remain utterly disengaged with the entire process of education all throughout their tenure in education for no fault of their own. And they remain disengaged, probably because of a disengaging and narrow curriculum, which fails to speak to their specific interest, passion, and talent. Disengaged learners, they often pick up careers and professions wherein they do not love the work that they do, but rather they somehow endure it due to financial or maybe societal pressures. So outdated contents, utterly dissociated from the real life context and experiences, which most of our educational institutes still continue to deliver, will continue raising a generation of disengaged and disinterested learners as well as professionals. So this is absolutely a vicious cycle. If we want to raise a generation of happy and truly successful individuals, we must recognize, we must celebrate the creative genius, the inquisitive mindset, the talents, and the individuality that each and every child brings along with him or her. The one size fits all and the factory model of education must inevitably give way to a more personalized, a more fulfilling, a more creative form of education. So who's going to do all this? Who's going to bring this revolution? Who's going to bring about this redefinition and reimagination of education and learning? It's definitely you and I. It's definitely the teachers, the educators. Teachers have the greatest role. They have the greatest responsibility and ownership in transforming our current education system. I would like to conclude my deliberation today by posing a thoughtful question to each and every one of you, those who are attending this session today. That understanding the basic fact that our current education system does not need any reformation, but it rather requires a complete revolution. Would we still align ourselves to a kind of a system that encourages our learners to follow and not to lead, to fit in instead of stand out, and to conform instead of challenging the status quo? Thank you. With this, I end my session today. Thank you very much to all those who have attended the session. So I'm sure that there will be certain takeaways from the session. So if you have any queries or if you have any clarifications, you can feel free to connect with me. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Yeah, students, like if you have any questions, any doubts, you just raise your hand. We'll unmute your mic so you can have a interaction with the guest faculty. Yeah, ma'am. We have one student who raised a hand here. Mr. Pawan Kumar, can you unmute your mic, please?
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, madam.
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, Mr. Pawan Kumar. You can speak to her.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, what are the most important qualities of students in 21st century education, madam?
I think I have in details dealt with this. So if you have attended my session carefully, I'm sure you must have heard that this were the crucial points which I have actually discussed. What are the characteristics of 21st century learners? I think I have, discussed this in details. Thank you. Any other questions?
Participants, anyone? If you have any doubt, you can just raise your hand, or you can drop down a message in the chat box. I think, ma'am, I think there's no questions from any of the participants. So if it is okay, shall we conclude this, ma'am?
Yeah, sure. If there are no more questions, then yeah, of course, we can conclude.
Yes. Okay. Our chairman, sir, has just joined now.
Good afternoon, madam.
Very good afternoon.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and delivering lecture for our students and faculty.
Thank you. It has really been my pleasure to be on this platform. Thank you so much.
Okay, madam. We need your cooperation in future activities also.
Sure, absolutely. Please feel free to connect with me. If I can be of any help in the educational initiatives and endeavors, I would be very happy.
Thank you. Okay, you can conclude.
Chairman,
Raja,
sir, shall we go to conclusion?
Raja, you can conclude.
Sir? Right, sir. Ma'am, it was my pleasure to propose out of thanks for this wonderful webinar session. First, I would like to thank Dr. Shauli Mukherjee Garu for accepting our invitation and delivering such a beautiful topic today, which is reimagining education for the 21st century learners. And I would extend my thanks to Chairman Sir for having contact with you and sending us. And I would like to thank our IT and support team who have been behind us all the time for continuous without any disturbances in conducting of this Zoom meeting. At the same time, I would like to thank our principal sir, director sir, and at the same time our IQAC coordinator sir for conducting this beautiful session. And I would like to thank participants and professors from different universities. We see many professors joining from different universities. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. Thank you, and thank you one and all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.